I'm writing along, I'm writing a screenplay, and everything's going great. I'm totally grooving on the characters, I'm in my practice, I'm hitting those tab keys, I'm being funny, I'm being thoughtful, and it's going so well that the thought crosses my mind, this screenplay is going to win me an Academy Award. The minute I have that thought.
Why do you say that the only thing that matters is practice?
In my vocabulary, there's something called a useful fiction. A useful fiction is a lie that we tell ourselves in order to help ourselves do things we want to do. It's a fiction that's known to be a fiction but deemed to be useful just the same. Telling myself only the practice matters is an example of useful fiction. Because I might have an idea in my head, what really matters is selling a painting for $10,000. But if I ever want to have a painting that's worth selling for $10,000, if I set out to paint a $10,000 painting, I'm certain to fail. Because I'll be too afraid of failing. I'll be too afraid of screwing up a $10,000 opportunity. If I say to myself, the only thing I have to do is continue to get good and keep getting better until I'm capable of creating works that are worth selling for $10,000, that's the only way I'm ever going to achieve that goal. So what this boils down to is when you say to yourself, only practice matters, what you're really saying is, in order to achieve my goals, in a sense, I need to distract myself from my goals. I need to ignore my goals for the time being. Because if I'm too focused on achieving my goals, the focus that I put on achieving my goals will be a roadblock, will actually keep me from achieving my goals. I'll give you an example. I'm writing along, I'm writing a screenplay, and everything's going great. I'm totally grooving on the characters, I'm in my practice, I'm hitting those tab keys, I'm being funny, I'm being thoughtful, and it's going so well that the thought crosses my mind, this screenplay is going to win me an Academy Award. The minute I have that thought, I'm no longer on the page. I'm off the page and I'm in the realm of my fantasy where I'm getting an Academy Award. And that might be a pretty picture, but it's not useful to me in the moment because I'm thinking about the outcome when I should be thinking about the practice. So this is why I say nothing matters but the practice, because in order to do the practice well, it's axiomatic. You need to be thinking about the practice. If you're not thinking about the practice, you're not going to execute anything at all. So if I find myself thinking about how wonderful it's going to be when I win an Academy Award, and I start thinking about the acceptance speech that I'm going to write, I'm taking myself off the page and I'm not moving the work forward in any sense to the point where it might achieve that goal. So I just say to myself, you're off the page, go back to the page. Words on the page, that's the only thing a writer can control, words on the page. When everything else is lost, words on the page will sustain us. And by extension, when everything else is lost, being in our practice will sustain us. While we're having this conversation, you know and I know that the California wildfires are not too far in the distant past, just last week or the week before. And I guarantee that there are people out there who lost their homes, whose first response is, I gotta get my hands on some watercolors. I have to get some paints. I gotta get a canvas. I need to make an act of creation. I need to do my art now because I'm in such crisis that only that will save me. That's a beautiful thing. That's refuge. If you are fearless enough to let your practice save you. The problem many people face, and this is where my heart goes out to them, they want to be in practice, but they are afraid. And because they're afraid, they're denying themselves the very reward that they seek, which is to fall into that deep pool of practice, whether it's artistic expression or writing or anything at all, to the point where they just really feel good about it, where they feel physiologically good. We went through this in the pandemic. Creative people needed to respond to the outrage of the pandemic with creative expression. I did, you did, we all did. So we know this to be true.
Now, is path similar to flow? You know, the book by Mikhail, and I've gotten his name wrong before, forgive me. But the book Flow, and it's about being present, so present in whatever you're doing that you forget about time, any problems, you're just in the process of it.
Yes, practice has that quality. I call it chasing the buzz, and that's just my word for the same thing. When you're in the flow, when you're in the moment, there's no past, there's no future, only now. My dad got it from golf. I get it from painting or from drawing, from visual creativity. I get it from writing. I get it from a lot of things. I get it from Ultimate Frisbee. You know it's there. You know you want it. It's neurochemical. It's endorphins released. The act of creation, this thing that we call flow or being in the zone or chasing the buzz, they're all the same. They're different definitions for the same thing, which is you are being neurochemically reacted for doing what you want to do. Sorry, you're being neurochemically rewarded for doing what you want to do. I could delve deep into this. I believe that humans are neurochemically rewarded for a whole series of behaviors because all of those behaviors are profoundly pro-survival. And when we're neurochemically rewarded for eating, for sleeping, for acts of creation, for taking risk, all of these things are pro-survival. They're good for us as individuals, they're good for the tribe, they're good for the species. As I like to say, if we weren't willing to take risks, we'd still be living in trees, wondering where our next banana was coming from. So we shouldn't be surprised when risk is neurochemically rewarded, or creativity is neurochemically rewarded. That's what keeps humanity moving forward.
And going back to when you were talking about writing the screenplay, and what was taking you out of your path was envisioning sort of the, getting this Emmy, whatever, walking into Dantana's, blonde on one arm, brunette on the other, tux, everybody's. Is it okay to indulge in those fantasies and then get them out of yourself?
I mean, anything's okay. With awareness and acceptance, everything is okay. I'm aware that I'm off the page, that's okay. Try to get back on the page, that'll be okay too. And also one can reward oneself. One can say, I'm going to shine for a minute. This is how I describe it. I've just written a joke and it's a funny joke and I might feel like I got to share that with a friend. I got to shine for a minute or just enjoy it for myself. That's healthy practice. The only thing that contributes to unhealthy practice is fear. And the only thing that contributes to healthy practice is fighting against fear. All of the other steps we might take will either serve or hinder those goals. And I think it's worth having a clear understanding of the difference between path and practice for our conversation. Practice is the way we move forward. Path is the steps along the road that we're moving forward upon, and purpose is the destination while we're on this road. So we might say that path is the road, practice is the car, and Las Vegas is the destination, or whatever else is the destination. Sorry, purpose is the destination.
But we hear so many people say that ego. Well, I'm in my ego, whatever, and then this is all ego based. But what if somebody just kind of indulges in it for a while and then gets it out of their system? Because if you force, no, I refuse to be in my ego, and I'm going to be in this monk mode, and I'm pure in my intention. What if you just say, I'm going to just indulge my ego for a little bit and be like, all right, it's like a candy, and then I've had enough. Now I want to get back on my path.
I buy that completely. I have nothing to offer except to say that sometimes what looks like a virtuous path is really an ego-driven path.
Sure.
I'm thinking about, in these times, I'm thinking about first responders. They're not egomaniacs, but they are driven to serve. And by serving, they reward themselves psychologically. They reinforce their image as people who can and choose to save other people.
And risk their own lives, yeah.
I'm sorry?
And risk their own lives.
And risk their own lives. So in terms of doing things for the ego, I can imagine that if somebody goes up into a blazing fire and rescues somebody from a fire, and they end up feeling pretty good about it, they deserve to feel pretty good about it. It's not like they're doing it to make themselves feel good, but the consequence of doing it does make themselves feel good, and that may be why they define it as their purpose. My purpose is to save lives.
Right, and I don't want to say that first responders are so ego-driven. I know maybe some of them are driven also by the fact that they couldn't save someone in their lives growing up, And at least that was something a therapist had told me a long time ago. I don't know if that's true. But if we take the analogy of the white knight, and I'm not saying that first responders are the white knight,
Sure.
but the white knight in sort of medieval times of someone that comes in and more with I'm going to save the village. And it turns out maybe that they have dubious plans, but they look as if they're here to save the village. Sometimes we can fall into that category, but
we can't know what goes on in the mind of the white knight, but we can note the difference between dramatic characters and comic characters, and then we can think about how that reflects on our own life, if I may.
sure.
Last year I was in London doing a workshop for Amazon, for their creative team, their European creative team. And the question on everybody's mind is, what's the difference between drama and comedy? And so I gave it some thought, and I arrived at this. Dramatic characters take actions toward goals. They act in their own self-interest. Comic characters take actions toward ego. They act in their own self-image. So, to take the example of the White Knight rides into town, wants to save the village. That's a dramatic character taking action toward dramatic goals. If that character wants to save the village so that everyone can tell him how wonderful he is, that's a comic character taking action toward ego goals. When we're evaluating the actions of other people or evaluating our own actions, we have to look past the action and ask ourselves, what is the motivation for this action? Am I serving my self-interest or am I serving my self-image? And if I'm serving my self-image, might I not want to make the choice to serve my self-interest instead? Let's think of a harsh example. Husband and wife, they're not getting along. And they have a capacity to trigger each other. I can say something that I know will be hurtful to you. And if I say it, it's going to make me feel better in a perverse way. But it's not doing anything for sleeping peacefully together at night. It's not doing anything for building our relationship and moving it forward. It's not serving any self-interest that I can see. It's only making me feel better. So I make the choice to take an action for the sake of feeling better. But by making that choice to feel better, I end up harming outcomes that I would wish not to harm. I might end up making things worse for myself, better for my ego, worse for my situation, let's say. We can call this entire class of engagements cartoon emotions. We can say there are things that we do simply to make ourselves feel better about ourselves. And we can honor those feelings, never have to judge them as negative, but we can also opt to have different strategies that lead to different outcomes. So in this case, I might say to myself, I know that if I let the next words come out of my mouth, I'm going to score a big point, make myself feel like a stud, but I'm also going to set this relationship back 10 days. I'm going to skip the pain of the 10 days. I'm going to find a different way to voice those feelings, or just not voice them at all, not repressing, just turning away from an opportunity to be hurtful, because I know that making that choice will lead me more reliably toward the outcomes that I want to have in my life.